All right. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Okay. We'll get started for today's session over here. So as usual, okay, what we're gonna do is to look into the markets, share with you some analysis and some of the opportunities that you want to keep an eye on. And after which we'll do a quick Q&A, answer a couple of questions that you guys have. And then after that, I will pass the time to Ben over here from Everything Trading to share with you a little bit about the upcoming event that we're having on this Sunday, right? This coming Sunday is a physical event. Later we'll share with you a little bit more as well, and of course, there's a series of speakers lined up for you as well as some gifts, right? For those of you who attend, okay. So that's gonna be we're gonna talk a little bit about that later on, but let's focus on the market here first, okay. Now, if you take a look at this week, or I would say, let's take a look at what happened last week in terms of NFP and the Canadian side of things to refresh, your memory if you kind of like, did not really pay attention to last Friday or maybe over the weekend, kind of miss out on that. So if you take a look at the Canadian side of things, right? So labor market in terms of unemployment rate remains this kind of expected at 5.5. We did kind of get an increase in unemployment rate, which is actually not a very good sign for economy. And of course, you can see employment change over here is the negative data, right? So the CAD actually weakened quite a bit post event when the news was released. Okay, but of course, we'll take a look at the charts later on as well. Okay, yeah, to me, the dollar CAD did move higher, but from a chart pattern perspective, it's not a buy yet. Okay, but in fact, we're still looking at potential reversal. We'll talk a little bit into the details as we look into the charts later on. And then for NFP, it's quite a mixed data, right? So unemployment rate actually came back down. Okay, very very surprising. Okay, and that kind of built in the probability where we may not see a kind of like a bad recession, right? We're gonna see a mild recession. But so far the economic data seems to be quite positive, right? You can even see average hourly earnings actually went back up. In terms of expectation was 0.3, it came out at 0.4, which basically is the same as last month, right? Yeah, so overall, you can see that the US economy, at least from a data perspective, is quite resilient. Okay, and it's not as straightforward if the data is bad. Okay, because it's quite resilient, it provides more room and the chance of Fed hiking one more time. Okay, and that's gonna make things quite difficult in terms of like not really straightforward, in terms of fundamental perspective. Okay, so anyway, we're still gonna be looking out for events on week to week. So I think not much to be overly worried about anyway. Okay, we'll just need to flow with the market, right? Now going into this week, you can see today is usually quiet. Monday we do have the Australian and Canadian bank holidays as well. Tomorrow really nothing much. Wednesday really nothing much as well. You probably just want to pay a little bit of attention to this data here on CNY, which is basically Chinese market, right? CPI year on year. Now generally, the developed markets are, in their concern is on the inflation aspect, right? But you can see over here, China economic performance is not really that great relative to the rest of the world, right? You can see CPI in China is 0% year on year, which is basically, from a inflationary point of view, the economy is not growing, right? And the market is expecting a negative CPI, right? Negative means the economy is contracting, okay? So what can impact, or we don't trade the Chinese yuan, right? But what can have an impact over here, kind of like a flow effect, is the Australian dollar, right? And of course, if you're looking into China market like Hang Seng or A50, okay, in terms of China indices, then that would obviously have an impact into it. Okay, now economy being bad is not equal to stock market coming down, right? But in fact, it's actually going to be having a positive sentiment in the stock market simply because if the economy is really worsening on and contracting in China, then there's a very good chance that the Chinese government would actually do an easing policy, right? AKA printing money. And when they start to print more money, when they do easing policy, money is cheap, money will flow into the equities market. Okay, and on the contrary, then the stock market will actually see a boost, right, in terms of like when the economy is not going well. Okay, so economy doesn't equal to stock market. Okay, just have that in mind as well, right? So take note of that. And then on Thursday, we do have a little bit of a CPI data from the US coming in. Okay, so year on year, you can see basically the last data was 3.0. This time around, they're expecting the interest rate to come back up a little bit. Now, if we do see the CPI year on year actually go up, then it increases the odds where the Fed may hike it one more time in terms of interest rate, maybe in September. And again, as I mentioned, right, that would actually make the entire fundamental flow not as straightforward. Okay, it's not like it's going to be very, very difficult to trade. It's just simply the fact that it's not so straightforward. It's not as direct. Okay. Any case, we're gonna look into the charts anyway to help us determine the directions from week to week, as well as like areas in which we can execute trade. Yeah. So that's on Thursday, and then on Friday we do have the core PPI, and I don't think this is gonna be very, very significant. So I think the focus for this week is relatively quiet in terms of news. We have the CPI in China and of course CPI in the US, right? So these are the two. Right. So with that said, let's jump into the charts over here. Starting off with the dollar index, we are looking at a potential weakness going into this week here. Okay, so whoops, my mistake. Let me just readjust that a bit. Okay, so if you take a look at last Friday when NFP data came out, the dollar actually weakens, right? So we kind of completed the three-wave move, very nice little fib expectation, and of course right now we expect a deeper pullback. So that's the 50 and 618 zone, right? So this week going into the entire of this week here, we're looking at dollar weakness. Okay, so if the dollar index is actually looking to come down, then of course if you're looking at some of the major pairs, you can find some kind of alignment and confluence with the dollar index. Okay, so euro dollar then of course we'll be looking for more potential upside, at least for a short run. Okay, at least towards this 50 and 618 retracement, and then obviously by then, okay, there might be a situation where this can continue to go lower, or if we get a very strong little push up, then this would be the correction done, and we'll probably see more upside from there on. Okay, but we're gonna flow with the market, from week to week perspective. So at least for now, this week here, we're just simply looking at this target, okay, to the upside. The idea is, of course, just wait for a simple correction, and then that will be a nice little buy trade opportunity back up. Okay. GBP USD quite similar here as well. Okay, so the idea is we have a three-wave completed, fibs very nice. We get a first reaction to the upside. Okay, so if we can get a tiny bit of a consolidation here, then we can expect one more wave back up towards the 50 and 618, and of course that would give us a short-term buy opportunity within the week. Okay, now some of this setup will probably come to us, I would say maybe late tomorrow, late Tuesday, or even Wednesday. So you just need to be patient, right? I don't think you just want to jump in like that. Euro dollar and pound dollar, the setup will probably come to us like late Tuesday or even early like Wednesday. Okay, that kind of time frame. Okay, so just be a bit patient. Look out for that corrective structure. Aussie dollar here is a little bit different from euro and the pound. Okay, and of course we also have a very nice little alignment in terms of a potential catalyst from Chinese CPI, right? So just like I did mention, we don't trade the Chinese yuan, but of course, if the Chinese market fundamentally is not doing well, it will have a ripple effect into the Australia dollar, and the relationship is quite positively correlated, right? Which means if Chinese market is not doing well, Australia would likely see a little bit more downside. So the news is coming in on Wednesday, right? So I think what would likely happen in the Aussie dollar over here is ideally we can get a little bit of push tomorrow, and then a little bit of push back up late tomorrow, early Wednesday, and then we can see a very nice little three wave. And then if you're interested in trading the Chinese data, of course you don't trade yuan as I mentioned. You can look for a news trade here on Aussie to look for a break to the downside, right? Because if this is going to be a three wave move nicely, there's a good chance we'll get another push down to complete that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So that would open up an opportunity in the Aussie, okay, for this week here as a news trade. So do pay attention to that. Dollar CAD, right? As I mentioned, we did get that volatility chop on Friday, but I did mention it's not immediately jump in and buy kind of setup simply because the chop itself, well, we did break this high a little bit, okay, but how it broke it was very very corrective in nature, right? And we do have a RSI divergence here as well, so I wouldn't suggest buying into it, right? Instead, if this is gonna be the case, there's a high probability this may be a topish formation, there's a double top, and this may actually come back down. Okay, so the confirmation over here is, of course, if you're a little bit more conservative, is to wait for price to actually break below this structure first, and we want this to break off impulsively, and then if you can get a pullback here, that will be a nice little decent trade to the downside. Now for this setup here to develop, we'll probably need to take a couple of days, and based on just a little bit of a kind of estimation, the earlier day within the week that we may get a clear setup is probably around Thursday or Friday, right? So again, for dollar CAD, you just need to be a bit more patient, right? So the setup may come to you maybe on Aussie, Euro, and the pound first, right? Aussie mainly as a news potential, and then going to the later part of the week, where we have US CPI and things like that, dollar CAD will come in, and of course, dollar yen will also potentially build in. Okay, so dollar yen here has a very nice little rejection from the top, right? So this is again a very nice little three-wave move. I did not put in the fib here, but if I were to put in the fib for you to see, we had a very nice little 100% to 123.6 area, right? So it kind of come very very nice to 123, and then we did a rejection. Okay, so right now what we're looking out for, of course, is if we can get a tiny bit of kind of like pullback. Okay, and naturally, of course, we'll be focusing on downside, right, to complete the bigger 1, 2, 3. Fundamental side of things is not the clearest right now, but of course, if you understand the recent development in terms of Bank of Japan, then we're looking at more of a potential kind of like move where the yen may strengthen going forward. Okay, when I mean potential move here, we are talking about comparing the upside potential versus the downside potential. The yen has a higher profit potential in which it will strengthen, right? And that's the part where we're looking at some of the yen pairs over here. We'll be more interested in looking at downside for the yen pairs, right? So that's the primary focus on it. And then of course combining with the dollar yen, even better, right? Because moving forward, there's a very good chance that the Fed will eventually pivot into easing policy, and Bank of Japan will eventually pivot into a tightening policy, and then that would build a very nice little dollar yen trade combined with the fundamentals of it. Okay, so this is the outlook for dollar yen. Do keep an eye on that. Okay, gold here, we did break off that channel, okay, late last week, but that again doesn't immediately means sell, because you are always asked how the market is breaking it. It did break it, but it doesn't kind of follow through very impulsively after the break, right? So last Friday we did get a bounce back up, so right now if you can get a tiny bit of a consolidation here, there's a good chance we may see more upside in gold, right? So this will complete that three-wave move down. We may see gold retesting the previous top and even breaking it potentially. Okay, so this is quite similar to some of the major pairs like euro, dollar, pound dollar, right? You just basically wait for a corrective structure. The setup may come to you maybe on Wednesday. Then you can look for more upside, right? Of course, you can also time it a little bit, put a kind of like look for a setup, maybe leveraging on the US CPI data release, okay, as a potential news trade as well. Definitely something to look out for. Okay, so I think this week in terms of major pairs, I think a lot of this are lining up. Okay, you just need to really pay attention and be focused on them. Okay, crude oil over here, if you're looking at commodities, my suggestion is be a little bit neutral on this. We do have a divergence build up as well, right? So again, most of the time this suggests that a potential pullback or even a reversal may happen. But it's definitely not a sell yet, okay? Because the market is moving higher. If you're looking at a counter trend, it's always good to wait for some sign of confirmation. Okay, and confirmation basically means you want to wait for a first impulsive drop following that corrective pullback. This would be a confirmation for more downside, right? So right now we don't have that as well. So it's definitely not a sell yet. But because of divergence and of course the price structure over here or how it's developing, um, I personally wouldn't suggest for buy. So we're basically neutral on that. Okay. S&P, right? I think since like 2 weeks ago we kind of shared that don't be aggressively buying into it. Again, that's how the market tends to move. It moves in wave. And of course, right now over here we're seeing that pullback, right? So I think the pullback has yet to complete. We may see a deeper pullback, perhaps back to like 4380. Okay. Even with that pullback, overall it's still in an uptrend, right? I mean, like this year, the market has really pulled off to the upside quite significantly. So even if it pulls back to like 4380, we're technically still in an uptrend. Okay, and that will be a better opportunity to look for buy, right? So if you're looking at short-term trade, okay, then it's quite straightforward, right? We kind of have this little drop here. If we can get a corrective structure this week, maybe towards Thursday or Friday, then that will be a sell. Okay, so short-term bearish, right? So very, very straightforward to that. Some of this here may not be the clearest of all, so we probably not spend too much time on that. Euro pound, if you're interested in it, okay, we kind of look at this in the perspective of this is the first wave down, this is the X wave, right? Second wave, and then we're expecting the third wave down. Of course, we have that confirmation break, right? So if you can get a break impulsively following that a corrective pullback, then of course that will be a confirmation for a sell trade. If you are a little bit more aggressive, of course you can just look for the breakout to the downside, right? So this is something you can keep an eye on. I personally don't trade the euro pound. Okay, it's just not something that I like. Okay, to trade. So I don't trade the euro pound, but of course the opportunity is there. Okay. Nothing on this. Bitcoin here, nothing much as well. Okay. So I think primarily the opportunity for this week very much lies in the major pairs, right? Like euro, dollar, pound, dollar, the dollar related, right? That's where the opportunity you want to be focusing on for this week. Okay. Yeah. Other than that, like China market, because we have the Chinese CPI coming in this week, right? Yeah, so we're kind of developing a pullback here, right? Right now you can see that. Let's just do a very quick measurement and see where that's gonna be. Yeah, so that equal leg would bring us a little bit lower towards this zone. Okay, kind of stretch it somewhere there. Yeah, so will the market actually come all the way down towards this zone? There's a good possibility. Okay, but just bear in mind, does not necessarily need to reach exactly that point, right? So the take here is probably I wouldn't want to suggest a sell, okay, because I think taking a sell at where the market is right now here is not going to be ideal because your stop need to be placed there, right? And then your target will be somewhere like here. So it's not really an ideal trade. So my personal suggestion here is more of like wait and see if when we reach this zone, can we get either a crawl pattern or we get a nice little rejection. Then you look for a trade to the upside instead of that sell. Okay, so this probably you need to wait post CPI from China. Okay, and then see how this develops. Hong Kong index probably the same as well. It's still coming down a little bit. But I don't think you want to just buy off like this. Okay, I mean you don't just want to buy because it tags the 50%. Ideally this should come back up a little bit and then drop before you look for the buy, right? So you want ideally see a pullback first, then a drop to complete the structure of like 1, 2, 3, right? If this here just keeps falling, then this may be just one move, and what can happen over here is this may just develop into a correction and we may see a retest of the bottom of the channel. Okay. So you need to be always kind of like adapt to what the market is telling you, right? What the pattern is telling you. Okay. Cool. Yeah, so that's that's the part Lim asks, I'm using Elliott Wave. Yeah, so the principles behind all this analysis here are basically coming from Elliott Wave itself. Okay. Right. So George over here asking about a Kiwi dollar. I think Kiwi dollar is quite similar to Aussie, right? Overall, you can see. Okay. So I think the outlook of Kiwi and Aussie would likely be the same. They haven't really get that. Yeah, so if we kind of get a corrective push here, I think that is a good chance we'll see one more drop. Probably coming down to this zone here, and then an upside, right? So short-term downside, which is quite similar to the Aussie itself. Okay. Euro Australia, you probably want to give it a little bit more time and see if this would turn into a crawl. If it does, then obviously we expect a deeper pullback to come back towards this zone, right? Then that will be a sell opportunity if we get a crawl, right? So you just need to give it a little bit more time for it to continue to develop and see if it gives you a nice little crawl. Now, looking at how it's developing now, it seems like it's doing a crawl, okay, but you just need to give it a bit more time to confirm the structure. And of course, we already have that divergence there, right? So definitely be patient, right? The pattern will be clearer to you maybe if you give it another, I would say like 3 days. So that will build you into Thursday, right? So then Thursday you come back, look at it. If it's a crawl, that's a nice little setup for sell opportunity. Pound Kiwi, my suggestion is just stay out of this. Okay, you look at how the pattern is developing. You try to trade within this kind of like very fast up, very fast down. Impulses one after another. If you try to trade this environment, it's not gonna work out. Okay. And on the daily, of course, then what we can see is this is what we call crawl, right? So daily suggests that we have a divergence as well. So daily, of course, is suggesting that eventually there's a higher probability of something like this. Okay, but daily means you need to be very, very patient, right? So if you look into like 4 hour, it's just not worth focusing. It's not worth putting the effort here right now. Okay, so just stay out of this entirely, right? I wouldn't even suggest this week to pay attention. Okay, this week unlikely you're gonna get anything on Kiwi or on pound Kiwi, right? Okay. Good. So I think most of this pair should we talk about it. I see one more over here asking about Euro Canadian, right? Euro Canadian. Yeah, Euro Cat is definitely not the clearest right now in terms of Elliott Wave. There are a couple of things that can develop over here, right? Of course, when I mean not clear means we don't have a high probability, right? Can I still put in an analysis based on Elliott Wave? Yes, and again, when I mean there's a lot of probability means, one way we can look at it is this is one move. This is all it takes for the kind of retracement, and then we'll see an upside here complete at 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's one potential scenario. What can also happen, of course, is this is one move. This is the reset of this move down, and then we expect another move down to complete the tree before the move back up to look at a bigger structure, right? So we are kind of in this area where this can just continue to go higher, or this can come back down to break this before the push up. We don't have enough information right now to determine which one would likely happen, right? So usually in this kind of situation, I just leave it. Okay. The reason is because we have the market kind of reacting right now around that 618 of this pullback, right? So either we get a nice little rejection back down, and then that would be probably suggesting we'll break this low before the push up. If we don't get a nice little rejection off from here, then it kind of suggests that, okay, this little move here, you can see again, right? Very nice little reaction. It means that this little move has done its correction of this, and from here it can start to go something like that, right? So we need more information. Okay, right now we don't have that piece yet, so nothing much on EuroCAD, right, from this perspective. Okay, Cat Frank. Okay. Cat Frank came very, very nice and tagged it higher. Okay, Cat Frank over here, if you kind of look at this, there is a short-term opportunity. I mean, if this continue to do something like that, okay, we can look for a short-term sell here towards this target. But again, that will probably be your target, and that's it, right? Because we can't have this structure there. So it's definitely not like a very high profit potential, but you know, you can still look to capitalize on that. If you can get a nice little corrective move, right? And this corrective move, you can look for areas, you know, pull fed from swing high to swing low. You can look for that corrective move to potentially complete around that 15,618, right? So again, you want this to go up slow. Okay? You don't want it to just push up today or tomorrow, right? Corrective means it needs to do slow. So just rough estimation, you know, you need to wait until maybe like Thursday, early Thursday or late Wednesday, right? That will be the rough estimation of time to reach this. And if it does, then likely it's a corrective move, right? If it goes up too fast, then it's not a corrective move anymore. Okay. Yeah, so that's the cat franc. Nikkei over here, yeah, we're still like this analysis is done like some time back, right? Still doing very nicely right now. I think Nikkei, we're still looking for short-term downside. Okay, potential target over here is like 31475, right? Now if you did not have any sell, this is not a good time to be selling it, right? Again, you know, the potential profit to the risk that you need to kind of take, it's not that worthwhile, right? But back then we were talking about looking at sell there, then that is very, very different, right? Because your stop losses just need to be above there, and then your potential target here, you can see the risk to reward ratio, right? So yeah, if you already have a sell, then of course you can still look for this opportunity to downside. Okay, but first you still want to manage your trade accordingly. If you don't have any trade on the Nikkei right now, then probably don't want to touch it right now, right? Yeah, but I think that is a good chance that we still see a little bit more downside, right? Or it may take a longer while, right? It may, like, you know, just come back down, go back up, and this entire week it may just do something like that, and then the following week it drops, then rebounds, right? So just understand that correction sometimes can take longer than you anticipate. Okay, so you just need to be patient, right? So sometimes it's always good to, you know, when you get an impulsive move, you manage the trade, take some partial profits, you know. It's always good to just take partial profits or even decide to exit the trade first. And then if you kind of see a very nice little correction, and if you realize that, oh, in the lower time frame, you know, it's still worth taking, then you just jump into another trade again. That is possible as well, right? Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Okay. Cool. Okay, so I mean, where to focus this week? The focus is very much on the major pairs. Okay, so like euro dollar, pound dollar, Aussie dollar, dollar cat dollar, yen, even gold. Those are the pairs you want to focus for this week. Okay, because those are the clearest structures and clearest probability trades that you may get into within this week. I'm not sure if we have Vietnam index. It's pushing up very strong. So generally, developing markets are the one performing right now, right? The US market is pulling down, right? Like Vietnam index is totally not in my radar. But I remember, you know, like last week we did talk about the Turkey market. Right? We did talk about the Turkey market, right? Still remember that. Yeah, so Turkey is also, you know, breaking off. What's my trend line tool? Turkey is breaking off, right? So we can see, you know, any pullback is definitely upside. We did talk about Mexico market as well, EWW. Okay. Yeah, so I did mention Mexico market is still developing, but you want to wait for pullback before you jump into buy. Vietnam market, you can see just now, is basically very, very strong to the upside. Okay. Yeah, I would suppose unless you are based in Vietnam, you probably won't have access to the Vietnam stock market, right? Yeah, but from a technical point of view, you know, this is definitely very strong momentum. I mean, if you do not have a buy, you wouldn't want to buy here. I wouldn't suggest you buy it. Wait for a pullback, then only jump in and buy. Okay, so meaning if you already have a buy trade on the Vietnam index, you know, just ride the trend, shift your stops, manage the trade accordingly. If you don't, okay, then wait for a pullback, okay, because again, whenever we get a very strong little impulsive move like that, the market tends to pull back. Okay, so from an Elliott Wave perspective, right, how can we kind of put in an analysis and put in some targets and things like that? My first direct impression is this is very strong, right? So likely this is developing part of a wave tree. Okay, so if this is a part of wave tree, then somewhere here needs to be wave 2. Okay, and because we are looking at the index, there's a very high probability, a very high chance that we'll get an extended wave tree, right? So what I mean by extended wave tree is we are looking at potentially a 1 2 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so let me kind of like quickly change this. Okay, so what I mean by 1 2 1 2 is that wave tree is extended, right? So in the yellow degree, this is 1, this is 2. We're developing a yellow degree wave tree. Okay, so yellow degree wave tree. Okay, let's push all this away. We'll probably end somewhere there, right? And within this yellow degree wave tree, we'll probably see an internal, again, 5 wave move to the upside, right? So that would be another color, okay, another degree. And of course, wave tree may or may not have concluded, and we'll really see an extension, and the momentum is definitely on the outside. Okay, so there's no reason to sell. It's just that this is definitely not the best price to get in the buy, right? If you get a pullback, that will be a better entry price. Okay, so if we kind of do a very quick projection over here, okay, this I think extend all the way even to 200 already, right? Actually there. Yeah, so you can see, right? I mean, we are in this territory between 1618 and 200. That's usually where wave 3 would likely conclude. So there's no reason to be buying in there, right? So what we can then expect is maybe a little bit of a wave 4 pullback. Based on simple rules, okay, you shouldn't see the market pull back all the way here to 1124. It needs to be above that, okay? And then what can potentially take place is something like this, right? Okay, so if I'm gonna put that in, this will probably pull back as wave 4, another pushback, wave 5 to complete also the bigger degree wave 3, and then we'll get a deeper pullback on wave 4 in yellow, and then wave 5 up there, right? So probably something like that. Okay, I mean, that's usually how the wave develops, right? Yeah. Okay, so if you're looking at it, then of course wait for the pullback, look to get it at a better price to buy. Good. Okay, dollar CAD, I think we talked about it already, right? So generally, we are focusing on giving it some time and see if we can get the sell this week, right? So that's the view on dollar Canadian. Yeah, so I think generally that's from my side. Good. Okay, so I'll do a very quick little sharing over here about this upcoming event. And then after that, I'll pass the time over to Ben from Everything Trading to share with you a little bit more. Okay, so now this Sunday, if you're based in Kuala Lumpur and PJ, we're having a physical offline event, right? It's a full day event, organized by Everything Trading, right, in collaboration with Zenfinix. And we have 2 main speaker and 1 guest speaker. Now I'm not gonna be speaking for this event, but I'll be there. Okay. As a participant anyway. So I'll let Ben later share with you a little bit about the speaker, okay? But from my side over here, to kind of like really encourage you guys to be open, and actively learn and listen to various insights and different opinion from all different traders, etc. To entice and give you the benefits and the bonus of really committing to this journey of learning. Okay, for those of you who are joining in for this event on Sunday, okay, I'll be there. Okay, what I'm doing on my part over here is if you're there on Sunday, do look up for me. Okay, so find me during the event. Do take a VFI together. Okay, so just as a proof, okay, to tell me that you were there for the event, to actually learn and listen to other speakers as well. And then post it out on your social media. Of course, tag me so that I'm aware of it, right? I'm being notified. And I'll be giving out anyone who actually do that a free 1 month membership into our Trading Dose Pro, okay, where we kind of run a weekly group coaching call, as well as provide you with the daily analysis report, right? So I'm gonna give you like 1 month free access to that, okay. So that's from my side, right? So with that, I'm gonna pass the time back to Ben, okay, representative from Everything Trading, to share with you a little bit more into the details of this upcoming event, okay. Yeah, so Ben, over to you.
So guys, let me just share my